now. A shocking new survey has revealed that half of young British Muslims feel alienated or disillusioned and even dangerously disconnected from the country that they call home. Less than 1 in 10 Muslims aged 18 to 24 think Britain is a tolerant country. Let that sink in. 10% of young Muslims think Britain is tolerant. Now, a senior Islamic leader warns that the Gaza conflict and the pro-Palestine protests have helped to deepen these divisions and created a dangerous vacuum that extremists could fill. So why is a generation of British Muslims turning away from Britain? And what is the government, or what can it do to try and stop this? Well, joining me now is Hiyaz Mughal, the founder and the director of Faith Matters and Tel Mama, two NGOs that work for interfaith dialogue, and they're against anti-Muslim hate crime. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mughal. These figures are astonishing. Less than 10% of young British Muslims think that Britain is tolerant. Why would they think that?
Well, I think there's been a number of factors that have led young Muslims to come to this direction of travel. I think there has been, for example, over the last 10, 15 years, there has been no integration strategy in this country. Let's start with that. From the Conservative governments right through to Labour right now, there's been no integration strategy. And the way of dealing with that, to some degree, has been to fund groups to do lots of interfaith kumbaya work, which we know actually just plays around the edges of the surface. The reality is, geopolitical issues, you've mentioned the Israel-Palestine international conflict, issues around 9/11, terrorism, extremism, the issues around a lack of an integration strategy. I would say also a basic lack of confidence and pride in our values of our country. That is not also properly promoted to young people. The fact that we should have a proper strategic plan to promote our values, to have pride in our civic values, to have pride in our national and identity values from school through to further education into university, all of that is significantly missing. And so governments have just tried to play around the edges around this.
OK, we talk about government responsibility. What about responsibility from within the Muslim community itself? We see a lot of towns, a lot of cities, a lot of areas within those areas where there simply is no integration through mosques, through communities. So it has to work two ways. This can't all be on the British government to do this. What about the Muslim community embracing British values, as you say? That sounds great and very utopian, but the fact of the matter is we're going backwards. Young British Muslims think of Britain as more hostile, as less welcoming. Something is going very, very wrong.
I'm afraid you're absolutely right. Let me explain why. So I'm 50-plus generation. I see no difference between myself and another Brit, whether they're of a different background, etc. I see no difference. I can relate to, I can engage with. But yet, 2 generations down, there's an anger I find in some of my co-religionists and a sense of separationism that I cannot actually identify with. So yes, there's a problem. Let's just be clear about that. The second element, absolutely you're right. This is a two-way street. And I've been one of a small number of individuals who put my head above the parapet to constantly say, why is that effort not being made by institutions within Muslim communities? Why are we not listening to things that sometimes we may disagree with, but we listen to them? Why don't we not engage with groups and communities where actually there may be some difficulty, but actually reaching out and embracing and engaging is the way forward? Why don't we listen to new values, new ideas, and embrace them? So I fully agree with you. And I think there is a long way still to go in some of the institutions within parts of Muslim communities to actually start to step forward and stop being so insular. So I fully agree with you.
OK, thank you very much. Refreshing honesty, and thanks for coming on the show. Much, much appreciated. Hiyaz Mughal, the founder and director of Faith Matters and Tel Mama. Thank you very, very much. Now, let's get back to my panel. Nigel Nelson and Gawain Towell. I'll start with you, Nigel Nelson. Wasn't that refreshing to hear? You know, we're constantly sort of self-flagellating or being whipped ourselves. Oh, it's Britain's fault. We're unwelcoming. We're racist. We're Islamophobic. But as the gentleman said there, what about the fact if this, it appears to me, I'll use the word radicalisation. Young British Muslims seem to be taught to hate Britain.
Well, whether they're taught it or not, I think Hiyaz was absolutely right. The important thing is integration is a two-way street. And so it's beholden on Muslim communities as well as other communities to try and make that work. In the same way that the head of the Muslim World League, when he was talking, made the same point, that without integration, you have the threat of extremism from Muslims, but also from non-Muslims.
You're about to say far right there, weren't you?
No,
you almost said it.
I was avoiding that. It is from non-Muslims. I mean, I don't think that far right comes into it. It is the danger of extremism from two different perspectives. Yes, we've got to understand that Gaza to Islam is a major event which affects the entire worldwide Muslim community. An attack on one Muslim in Islam is an attack on all. So inevitably there will be British Muslims who will be upset about Gaza. But when it comes down to the nub of it, it is the integration. It's about trying to prioritise domestic issues, not foreign ones.
OK, Nigel, let's take it to you, Gawain. It's one thing saying it must be a two-way street. What about the people actively embracing anti-British Islamism within the United Kingdom? The hate preachers, we used to call them. There's got to be some accountability. This isn't all Britain's fault and it isn't all our government's fault.
I'd agree. There's one thing I did want to pick up, though, you were saying about we should be more convinced of our own values. Because I've always believed that if we, as a nation, have given up on ourselves, why should somebody arriving here cleave to it? Why should they? Because if we don't believe in it anymore, why should somebody arriving here say, I've arrived there, but I'm going to stick with what I've got, because at least we believe in it. These Brits, they've given up. Well, and it is beholden on us to actually... And he was talking about schools teaching our values. And I would say, and I suspect I'd disagree with him, our values are based on Christianity.
Well, but are they? I went through Luton yesterday. And pulling into Luton, I saw like 4 or 5 mosques. You know, going through parts of Luton, I didn't see a single white person. We have enclaves.
But that is a failure. There's a failure of our own
enclaves of communities that simply never mix.
We need to be more confident in who we are if we're ever going to convince people to be part of us.
But you are talking about, hang on, if we're talking about half the UK Muslim population is under 25,
and
we are talking about people not who've arrived here, people who are, most of them would have been born here.
And I would say that, in a sense, is more insidious. British-born Muslims are more anti-British than the older generation. We've got a huge problem.
The tolerance mentioned there, only 1 in 10 believe this country is tolerant. I'm wondering, and it'd be interesting to drill down, if they're talking about the majority population being tolerant or themselves. Because I think in many cases they do not feel tolerant. And you must remember, tolerance is not about agreeing with. I do not tolerate you, Nigel, because I like you and I've got no problems. But I tolerate people I dislike and I disagree with. And the word tolerance has become something that it didn't mean. It means agreement these days rather than acceptance.
Okay, well, I mean, tolerance should be a banned word. It should be about freedoms.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Let's tolerate each other's opinions. Thank you, Nigel and Gawain. Now